Hey everybody, this is Cyrus. Trying to get back on the wagon here again with new updates and videos now that I think I'm feeling well enough to be able to record and speak for prolonged periods, hopefully without going into coughing spells. So this presentation is concerning something we do talk about frequently here, which is out-of-body experiences, dream states, and kind of the separation points between those different states of consciousness based upon some theories I'm putting out there that I've determined from my own experiences. And I'm hoping, really what this might be is a chance to corner some of the mysteries surrounding this subject, because these are some of the most complicated elements of all of these metaphysical topics. Because let's face it, a lot of people don't understand or know when a real objective out-of-body experience is happening, as opposed to when it is something that's happening in our own minds or something that is part of a dream. And this also creates the most ammunition for skeptics, because then they can dismiss no matter how vivid or objective an experience may be, they can always try to say, well, it must be some type of a dream state. Well, really what's needed now is a chance to pull apart even the very subject of what dreaming is, and then figure out how it relates to what appears to be experiences that happen on other dimensions of reality. Now, that's what this out-of-body topic is all about. And that's how it relates back to the subject of life after death, because if our minds can go outside of our bodies to other worlds, then that really changes the nature of what Newtonian physics thinks about reality. So really, hitting on all of the major points we talk about on this channel. So I hope you like this presentation as we figure out these subjects together. If you like these types of subjects, if you're into this kind of stuff, then I encourage you to please hit that subscribe button and that notification bell icon that's next to the subscribe button. Really, I need those, and likes and shares. All that is needed to keep these types of channels going. It's very difficult these days, since YouTube does not want to monetize this channel because I'm too controversial, apparently. I also, always really appreciate any help on the Patreon. It's as little as $3 a month. It can offset YouTube's attempt at keeping this from making any money for me. That's at patreon.com/afterlife topics. That's how you can support this work, whether it's this channel or the very big Facebook group or anything else that we're doing. I definitely will appreciate that, and helps to offset the current issues with YouTube. All right, so that being said, let's jump into it. Introduction. So our society seems to disregard dreams as just being hallucinations, but in the words of Joe Rogan, we can't do that because we don't even know what a hallucination is. Right, so we don't have a full grasp of what a dream really is. So who are we to be dismissing a dream as being just a dream? People love to use the word just to minimalize different subjects, usually without a full explanation behind it. Oh, it's just this, just a dream, just a fantasy, just a this, just a that. But this is kind of a way of I say minimalizing, but really it's kind of trying to remember the correct word. It's it's reductionism, right? So it takes something that could be very, very complicated, and then it's reducing that into something that is trivialized, but that's really a kind of a propaganda. So most people over 10 years old have dreams, and as many as 95% are forgotten upon waking up. It's a reminder that being in memories of unconsciousness does not always mean that nothing was happening. It's just that those memories didn't process back into your data processing center, which is what the brain is, and that's the big point that I'll be making here tonight, is the nature of the brain as a data processing unit. Children appear to have fewer dreams. So, found this surprising. I don't quite remember this when I was a kid, that other kids not having dreams, but apparently only like 20% of kids under age 10 have dreams. Those of us who do astral travel work have theories about the relationship between dreams and these out-of-body states. And this also creates the most confusion and misinformation. So, for anybody interested in this subject, I'm hoping that some of these theories, some of these ideas may help alleviate some of that confusion. By the way, on the screen cap, that's a screenshot from an Imogen Heap music video called Must Be Dreaming, where she goes out of her body. It's kind of a cool video. So, to understand this whole subject, let's begin with just a normal, everyday, run-of-the-mill dream. So it's a jumbled assortment of images, ideas, and storylines being played out haphazardly without lucid elements. So according to scientists, it's the way for the mind to process feelings, thoughts, and events, but it's kind of a flimsy explanation. Things may feel oddly real during the process. So when we're being hit by all these images, it seems like a very much something that we're engaged in. It makes sense at that moment. But upon waking up, there is the realization that nothing made sense. The stuff you were engrossed in wasn't even logical. So maybe in the dream, you had to put on mittens to be able to climb a mountain, and it made perfect sense in the dream, but then when you wake up, it's like, well, who wears mittens to climb mountains? But there may have been some kind of a psychological reason why this was created by probably your subconscious mind. Maybe mittens represent something from your childhood, and the mountain represents some kind of obstacle in life you're climbing now. So it's all metaphorical. It makes no logical sense, only this kind of metaphorical sense. But during the dream itself, somehow, it's as logical as putting on your socks and putting on your shoes and going outside or any other activity. It just it makes perfect sense. And then when you wake up, maybe because you have access to different parts of your mind again, it's like you realize, hey, that didn't make any sense at all. Still, because dreams can be so engrossing like that, even if despite the illogical elements, some people swear they have a dual life that exists inside of dreams, which is actually evidence that there may be more going on behind the scenes. So when you have lots and lots of dreams and intermixed with kind of the nonsensical stuff, it seems like there's a strong sense of familiarity, reoccurring characters, and kind of like the memory of having memories of things on that side. We have to understand that based upon all the stuff that we study here, the stuff that I talk about in relation to, for example, spirit communication. We're repeatedly told that dreams are a kind of gateway to the other side. So, I wouldn't say that it's a full experience on that side, but it's kind of like looking into a little window into the beyond. And everyone has always known this. Dreams have always been thought of as a kind of, pseudo-mystical experience, and that's the reason why. So even if it's not a direct experience, there's some kind of a memory, or there's something that's coming into our minds through the channel of hallucinations. Excuse me. In case you couldn't tell, I'm still not completely over this Indian flu that I've had. Although it might not even be an Indian flu, or maybe I picked it up in Vietnam, I don't know. But this is the longest I've been able to get through this presentation. I've tried to do this video a couple of times already, and I failed because I began just having a coughing spasm or whatever. So this is so far it's going pretty well. So I think I think we're doing it. And so anyway, so on that topic of mysticism, I mean, we can keep in mind that even a normal dream is to some extent evidence of the other side, because the imagery occurs through mind sight. So obviously we're not using our physical eyes, but it's some kind of a recreation, or it's an inner mental vision, which is not, our normal way of being able to see things or perceive things. And then obviously when we get into the lucid dream, it becomes even much, much more apparent. But even this very basic thing that we all experience is itself kind of like an evidence of something that is of a kind of a supernatural level, I guess. Because where does the imagery? It's coming from within your mind, but it's not. The eyeball interprets information in this external reality. But in this internal reality of the dream, it's a different entire mechanism, but it can be no less complicated. So, very interesting. So let's go into the subject of now the next level up, which is the lucid dream. Sometimes during a dream, your normal self is aware of the jumbled images and the storylines. This creates the first sign of a lucid dream happening. You begin co-creating the process, or you become aware of the system that's making the dream. So, we talked about the mittens and rock, climbing the mountain. Now you're aware of there's an element of your mind, of your subconscious self, that created that scenario, made that storyline because it wants to learn something. It wants to help each other to get over a feeling, to make sense of an emotion, whatever it might be. I mean, it's always this kind of learning process that's happening. Well, suddenly you become aware of setting that up. And then you might even begin consciously creating the next storyline, the next thing that you want to experience. You might have a memory about somebody that you haven't seen them in a long time, and then you want to create them in the dream. That helps you work out your feelings about that person or that situation. So suddenly you become, like, the subconscious suddenly becomes conscious, and then you become aware of the process of creating a dream. That's so sometimes this happens during a normal dream when whatever or from whatever mechanism this part of your mind turns back on. And that's the first sign of a lucid dream. But then it goes into many other things. So I actually have an example here. Boy, I'd really like to imagine what it's like in China after meeting that Chinese person earlier who seemed really cool. Let's turn the environment into China. So then now you're creating your imagination's interpretation of what China might look like, and fulfilling that expectation, fantasy, desire, curiosity, whatever it might be. So, just as the scientists say, it's it's your mind kind of working things out, figuring out the stuff that it needs to figure out, and using images and kind of virtual reality to make sense of it all. It's also why people who are, maybe a bit sexually starved will create for themselves lots and lots of different asexual experiences when they are dreaming. So some people have that happen to them all the time. Not me, of course, but for some people it's very common. A lucid dream, still the biggest hallmark, sometimes you're not always aware of the co-creative process with your mind. Sometimes it's just a dream. Suddenly it starts to almost match like waking reality. But there's big differences here. This is kind of the out of body experience trap. I didn't mention this on the slides. I probably should have. But this is where a lot of people go wrong. So if you're into out of body experiences, if you follow like the astral projection forums, things like that, getting good at the lucid dreaming, sometimes that automatically means you begin having astral experiences too, because these as I'll be explaining, like these different consciousness states can be kind of layered on top of each other. For some people it's just really normal that lucid dreaming ends up becoming astral projection. But for a lot of people it kind of stops at the lucid dreaming, but because the lucid dreaming is so convincing, they just believe that it's astral projection. Right, but then the problem is that no matter what happens, and this is a philosophical point and it's a technical detail, no matter what, a dream state is never going to be as fulfilling as objective reality. So you get a lot of people going on like life is a dream, existence is just a dream, we were all in a big lucid dream, blah blah blah. Okay, right, whatever. I mean, we can go into all the simulation theory, blah blah blah, but the fact is that when you're dreaming, everything that you see around you is being created by your own mind. And no, that's not the same thing as whatever, we start going into Tom Campbell stuff, or what the bleep do we know, and a lot of the kind of newer era esoteric types of writing that talks about how we create our realities, blah blah blah. We can't conflate all these subjects together. Okay, so the lucid dream state means literally it's being created by your mind. So literally you can't interact with real autonomous entities that are not being generated inside of your own mind, and you cannot explore environments that were not pre-existing. Right? It's all virtual reality created by your subconscious, which is great. It's even addicting, I think, to kind of get lost in the subjective kind of world. And it's a big part of reality, because we know, like, when we talk about life after death, I mean, the ideas behind, like, a dream state, I mean, the concept exists on many different dimensions of reality, including this one. And it's even more pronounced on the other side. And it's very easy for people to get lost in dream states, to get lost in a lucid dream, which is kind of the plot of the film Inception, which there's a screenshot of that up here on the screen, which was about the dangers in some respects of being lost in a subjective environment. Is it a long-term the thing to do? Do we need to have like a little totem with us, a little top to spin it to make sure that we're not getting lost inside of our subjective reality? And then in Inception, there's a scene where everybody is laying out in this kind of underground area where people pay money to use the Inception technology to enter into like lucid dream states for the rest of their lives. Especially, obviously that's great if your existence here in the external reality is like if you're sick and you're disabled or something along those lines. Like that kind of technology I think would be great, especially if there is shared dreaming, so it's not just entirely lonely, just populated by you and your own mental creations. But ultimately, though, we have to keep in mind, though, that these kinds of states, the lucid dream state is not the same as the astral state. And as a result of that, what you can experience in the astral state, or rather what you experience in a dream state, is limited by comparison to real life. And again, it's not a philosophical topic, it's just reality. So I can have a lucid dream, and I can have a lot of fun, but I'm not going to have anything meaningful happen that I'm going to write about or talk about in this channel or put in a book, because it's not an external objective experience. It's something that's made in my own mind. So the big trap that people fall into in the out-of-body subject is they begin having the lucid dreams and mistaking them for out-of-body experiences or astral experiences because they can seem so real. But you don't want to make that mistake. You'll end up with like a skewed perspective. You'll begin thinking that real life doesn't work the way it does. That everything is just an illusion. That's why we start going into some of those certain writers and certain people who make claims that everything is an illusion. Like your deceased loved ones are illusions, and everything is mentally generated, and then even this world is mentally generated. And we start going to solipsism, and I'm the only one who exists, and everybody freaks out. Look, it's easy to get lost. It's easy to get fooled, but we have to understand that there's a level above the lucid dreaming, which is the astral lucid mix, and still not quite the astral experience. But now we're moving into something that's more closely connected to. Excuse me. Okay, drink of water. I'm getting through it. Now we're moving into something that's more closely connected to a objective experience on the quote other side that we talk about, the afterlife, if you want to call it that. So sometimes lucid dreams completely jump the shark and appear to be something else. We enter a very confusing world where a lucid dream, quote, hallucination may be cast on top of an experience in an astral consensus world. This is also where a lot of confusion occurs. How can we be lucid dreaming and projecting at the same time? The answer is that different levels of consciousness are in conflict with each other, or it's as if the wires are crossed. So this is kind of why in Buddhist philosophy we have different bodies. We have like a dream body, astral body, causal bodies. Like when we go into Buddhism and Hinduism as well, and yogic practices too, there's these different body concepts. And because I think people who have experimented with these states, they realize that like their consciousness can be in multiple places at once, interacting simultaneously on different levels, and then when basically all that information is coming back into our brain, and then our brain has to try to process all of that, and it has a really difficult time doing that. Let me look ahead real quick. So it can get very confusing in that sense. To try to understand what's going on, you must first think of your astral self as a different autonomous person from you. So you are viewing into the autonomous person's life while your physical body is laying on a bed sleeping and having a lucid dream. But because your physical body is unconscious, you now have a chance to peek into a window to see what your astral self is doing on the other side, even if you're having a dream on top of it. So you just gotta think about this as layers. So there's a layer that's unconscious, your body's on a bed, you're unconscious. Then a layer above that is dreaming. Maybe it's a separate layer above that is having a lucid dream, and then another layer there above that is where your brain is receiving information above and beyond the dream about things that may be happening in these other dimensions that are not lucid dreams. It's above that level in a real objective space, but your brain is interpreting that information and feeding it into your dream. So this is what I call like an astral dream. So you're having a dream that does not seem whatsoever like it's being created by your own mind. The characters seem too real. The environments seem too much like something that's real. It just doesn't, you get this strong sense of familiarity. Like it's a place that you've been to before, that you've lived in before. But it's still a dream, so you don't know where one begins and the other one ends. But what's happening is, again, you have a data processing center, your brain, and it's receiving that information from the astral side, and it's processing that the best way it knows how, feeding it back into your brain, and what results is what results is that your dream becomes influenced by that information. So it's kind of like a multi-dimensional error. So the true astral versus almost astral, or the astral dream state. Okay. So a lucid dream may become 90% an astral experience when this happens. So now it's something very close to astral projection. I mean, you could probably call this astral projection when this happens. Because you're having a dream, you're asleep, you're dreaming, but you're interacting with people. It seems pretty darn real. It seems lucid. You're mostly controlling what happens. You're in environments. Maybe you see some beautiful crystal city. Who knows? And you strongly don't think that this is being created by your mind. And most importantly, people around you seem real. So there's a very distinct element when you are interacting with real people and not dream creation. So again, I talk about the issues with subjective dream worlds, why people who think that this is going to be a paradise and they can escape to their dream fantasy forever and ever, why they're making such a big mistake, because everybody they create is going to be non-autonomous. And if you're empathic, like I am fairly empathic and intuitive, I believe. And so when I meet somebody, I receive a distinctive impression about their personality, their energy, who and what they are. So it's almost like this telepathic imprint, right? So if I'm dreaming and I meet a creation of my own mind, I don't get that empathic imprint because whoever I just met doesn't really, I would say it doesn't really exist. I mean, it exists only inside of my own imagination. So I'm only receiving an imprint of myself, right? So it's literally something that it's an illusionary soul that my mind has generated. Now, the biggest indication that you're having an objective experience in another dimension is that then when you meet and talk to people, you'll find that you receive like the empathic impression, just like when you're talking to and meeting people here in this life, in this world, you receive that. And so then you can verify that this is a real experience. So despite all this, seems like the real thing. There's a big difference here with this kind of astral dream state, is that you're still processing the experience through a human brain. So as a result, we encounter information and data storage issues. In such a state, you cannot collect information that's already recorded in your hard drive. Real quick, I'm going to go ahead and... Thanks for bearing with the sound of the air conditioner. It's like 110 degrees Fahrenheit outside, so I kind of had to keep this on. I'm going to turn it off. Maybe it'll help the audio a little bit. Anyway, so in such a state, you cannot collect information that isn't already recorded in the hard drive. So to understand this, if you're having, whether it's a lucid dream with a projection of your own mind or an astral dream seemingly with a real person, such a person cannot speak a language to you, for example, Mandarin, and then be able to speak words that you don't already know. So if the only words of Spanish that you know are per favor, then that means the only thing a Spanish person will be able to say to you is per favor. Why is that? Because your brain works as this data hard drive. And when an experience is being processed through the brain, whether that's a lucid dream or it's an astral experience that is being interpreted through the brain still as a dream, then you can only create things based upon your own limited amount of knowledge that's stored inside of your brain. So that's why if someone says, that's why somebody is not able to say to you anything that you don't already know. So you're not able to process new information. So you can't meet deceased grandpa and then have him tell you that the will is buried under the tree. If grandpa tries to tell you that, on the astral level, you could have received the information just fine, but then by the time it comes back down into your human brain, it's going to come out like a bunch of gibberish. It's going to sound like grandpa is saying, my will is buried, blah, 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 blah. It's not even going to process into your mind because you're not able to receive information that you don't already know about. If you already knew that the will was buried under a tree, then okay, then they could say that. But if it's not something you already know, your brain is not going to be able to process it. And this is another key point about this is we may have a dream or an astral dream or what we think is an astral experience where it's, it seems like we're with somebody very familiar to us who, for example, is still alive on this world. Let's say, take up an example. How about like a TV show character, right? So let's say there's a TV show character who's like kind of happy-go-lucky, a bit overweight, jolly fella, and you have a dream or an astral experience that you're with this TV show character, and then you might rationalize when you wake up. It's like, wow, these astral experiences. It's so out there. It's so nonsensical that we can have experiences with TV show characters. The other side must just be this really nonsensical, whimsical place. If we have TV show characters walking around. Well, the thing is that what I'm willing to put all my money on is that no, you were not actually hanging out with you were not actually hanging out with like Homer Simpson or whatever the character might be. What happened is on the astral level, you met somebody or you had a friend or you knew somebody, and their personality type reminded you of, for example, Homer Simpson. And so as a result, because in the astral dream state you cannot create new data, your mind, when all this information was coming back into your physical brain, it had to find the closest corresponding match within your own database to explain who this person is that you knew on that side. And so it's going to substitute that person for example, Homer Simpson. Because maybe personality-wise, maybe this, middle-aged, kind of overweight man of the house that on the astral side reminds you enough of Homer Simpson that your brain is able to make that substitution as a way to make sense of who and what that person was. So it's only your interpretation that has that nonsensical element to it. So this leads up to the very, very important distinction, which is going to be the true astral experience. So this may involve the hallmark physical sensation or energy shift, floating out of the body, or experiencing a sudden vibration that is unmistakable. This can be brief and happen during a lucid dream, for example, and immediately indicates a shift happened. So, for example, you feel the energy shift, you actually feel yourself leave your body, you see yourself leave your body, you see a ethereal or duplicate version of an arm rise up out of your existing arm, any number of things. And what this means is that the shift has happened, and now you're no longer plugged into your physical brain. And thankfully, you're still going to be able to retrieve those memories, but you're now operating fully, or at least by a large margin, on the other side in a true way. Rarely, in my experience, does this happen without first feeling yourself leave your body, without first having a true out-of-body experience happen. Although I think as you get more accustomed, then sometimes that does not happen, or it won't happen as much as it does at the beginning. So now, if this happens, if you encounter someone speaking Spanish, now you can actually process objective information that's not already in your existing database. So now somebody speaking Spanish can tell you words in Spanish, and you can wake up and put them in Google and then learn those words that you didn't even know about before, confirming that this is being like a, quote, paranormal experience, because it's a real experience with real information, real stuff happening. And this is how you can meet people and learn about their lives on that side, and then verify it on this side. For example, looking them up on the internet, maybe finding a grave site, crazy stuff. I've done some similar stuff like this, and back kind of when I was, doing lots of out-of-body experiences. Or maybe even meeting another astral traveler, exchanging Facebook details, and saying hi the next day. In the out-of-body community, there's plenty of stories of people meeting each other astrally. One person I've spoken to claims that's how he met his wife. So even though those stories seem wild, but these are all happening as true astral experiences. And there's also there's a real objectivity and solidarity about it too. So as soon as we're still in that dream state, interpreting the information through our brain, the experiences can seem very out there, or they could seem very malleable to our thoughts. Whereas once we kind of break through, it really feels like an objective consensus world that we're in, because that means that we are really in the astral world. And obviously this is the goal, is to have the true astral experience. I am sure that there's some authors out there who maybe they've never even had a true astral experience, but they claim that all of their dreams are astral, and even if they could be partially astral, yes, but it often creates this very skewed perspective of what's going on, including inaccurate information. So now, I think my box might be covering up some of this slide, but this is Jürgen Zive's opinion about this. So in Jürgen's experiences, he doesn't seem to necessarily get that sensation of leaving the body, but he's able to transition from the lucid dream into the astral experience, and this is how he does it. A lucid dream, Jürgen says, is still a dream that we need to wake up from, but without waking up in our physical body. So the technique I use is to focus on the ground in front of me where I am at the time. The moment I crouch down and focus on an individual object by picking it up and holding it in my hand, which could even be a blade of grass, a flower, a pebble, some dirt, or any old junk that happens to be there, the dream narrative will get disrupted with a new focus of attention, and everything that has sprung from my mind quickly disintegrates and dissolves. So he's aware of these two different layers going on, and then he's able to consciously be in the lucid dream state and then collapse the lucid dream state and find that he's also operating objectively on the astral level. Keep focusing though. Hold your attention, because as you hold it on the object, your waking state becomes more clear, your awareness sharpens, and any fuzziness or dizziness often reported during OBEs also disappears, and your mind becomes sharp and alert. I don't know what he means by fuzziness. It's not so much fuzziness. Well, I guess like non-lucidity. You know, during a lucid dream state where it's like you're coming in and out of even being aware of what's happening around you, being able to control it, sovereignty in a sense. Oh, it sounds like we have the call to prayer beginning. It means it must be like 5 o'clock. So by now, all dream characters will have disappeared and the consensus astral scene around you emerges. Should people appear now, they will be 100% independent, real people, not dream characters. And this is probably one of the world's top out-of-body experts. This is his opinion. So now they want to be treated with the same respect as normal people want to be treated. They are people who live there, and you can interact with them and ask questions. So that's key, because some people, they go trapezing around these dream states, just doing whatever they want, because they can be the god of their own little kingdom. They can be the little king of nothing, because really there's nothing there. It's just their imaginations. And then doing whatever they want to anybody they want. I'll let your imagination fill in the details. Well, if you're having a true astral experience and you think that kind of behavior is cool, buddy, you're going to be in for a shock, because you're not in a world that's different necessarily than the world you're in right now. And you better treat people respectfully. And if you don't, you could end up, well, for one thing, you'll get kicked out. Go back into your body, the experience will end, but you could even get security on you. You could get, really piss some people off. So, again, so it's real people now. It's not dream constructs. Big difference between subjective nonsense and the real world. There's that dichotomy that we have to come to terms with. As much as we want to think or believe that everything is an illusion, and then there's no consequences or self-responsibility. We can just create the universe as we want, because you're the only one who exists. As much as a solipsism is that kind of enticing philosophy, truth is that we share our realities, and that's the point of love. It's the point of learning to coexist with other people. So once you're astral projecting, we're outside of that whole world of play and Star Trek holodeck kind of stuff. We're back in objective reality again, which means people deserve to be treated objectively. I will say that the people who continue to beat this drum that afterlife is subjective and not real, or that in the worst cases, the more extreme level of that, saying that this world is not objective, the people you meet are not real. This is solipsism. People who literally believe that other people we meet are illusions. I think that they have some inability to have a proper empathic connection, because if you have an empathic connection, you'll be able to know, if you're having an astral experience, that the people you meet are real people. They're not illusions. They're not constructs. But if you can't tell the difference between a dream construct and a real person, it means that there's something missing with your sense of empathy, and that's something that you, my friend, need to work on. Now, as Yoga points out, now you can focus on your loved ones and call out to them. Focusing on your heart will produce the powerful emotional pulling energy which they will notice. So this is how telepathy operates on that side. So if you want to meet up with your deceased loved ones, it takes, in my opinion, more than just a normal mental help, hey grandpa, can you hear me? You have to use your heart and emotions, because that's how that telepathic principle operates. Because they will feel that emotion, and then that will signal to them that you are trying to get a hold of them. So from that astral state, you can do that and then have a reunion with a deceased loved one. So Jürgen goes in from here, and this is just kind of where Jürgen and I have some philosophical differences. Jürgen is much more aligned to like Eastern religious thought, which is heavily prioritizes getting to the highest possible levels of consciousness, always looking for the next best thing. So if you appear astrally and you're in a lovely astral park eating astral ice cream, those from this particular philosophy may think, boring, I want to go be in a crystal temple, floating around in a rainbow sky or whatnot. And so their priority is to get out of there and then get to the next level. And so Jürgen has trained himself in techniques of moving up the gradient of different dimensional levels. And that's what he talks about next. So you may find if the astral environment is not to your liking, you can refocus. So Jürgen says he spins around, or does as Helen Simmons suggests, using that state to go into a meditation. And then it doesn't take long to, when you open your eyes again, to find yourself at a new elevated level of existence. Or entering like a samadhi, high-level chakra meditation state. If you are of the philosophy where you just want to get to the next level above whatever you're on right now, which is, I guess, how you become a true explorer of different realms and planes. For me, though, if I can get myself to the astral level, I want to go where my deceased loved ones are. I want to be able to explore places, that are familiar to me, and get an idea about what my kind of parallel life on that side is like. So I don't really care about like always trying to get to the next higher level realm. To me, it's I don't know. It's just not my. I don't come from that position philosophically. So to me, at this point of time in my life, I don't really care so much about going into the astral state and then trying to meditate my way out of that state to get to a better location. I'm more concerned with just exploring where I am and being, I guess, kind of grateful about wherever it is I find myself, because most likely that's where I'll meet like deceased loved ones and have the experiences that I want to have. So that's just a little philosophical difference between us. It's not a big deal. So that's it for this presentation. So all this was originally on Afterlife University. I did this for one of my classes last week, and I didn't like how the audio came out, so I scrapped it. I was going to put it on YouTube with the discussion that came afterwards with my classmates, but we don't have that now, so now I'm just going to leave it up to comments. So you guys tell me what you think. Does this explain anything? Does this clear up some of the confusion? Are you yourself confused? Because even I'm a little bit confused trying to figure this stuff out. Does the concept of astral dreaming kind of make sense in terms of some of your experience? You might be receiving astral data but not having a full experience. How does that relate to having a full-blown astral experience? Have you maybe tried to use Jürgen's techniques to initiate that out of an astral dream state? And most of all, did this help you at all? So leave the comments down below. Let me know. You can get involved at afterlifetopics.com. Excuse me. If you like this presentation, if you want to do more, if you want to join the classes, for any Patreon at the $30 a month or more level, we do typically about 7 or 8 classes per month. Big discussions like this, VIP treatment. That'll help support this channel, so you can sign up at Patreon or at afterlifetopics.com. You can check out books like Understanding Life After Death. It's my main book, where I go into so many different subjects about the afterlife, with the out-of-body stuff being just one of them. And that's a great gift as well if you're trying to, if you have somebody you know who's interested in the subject, but they just don't, they seem to be hitting a wall, they don't know how to proceed. That book is designed as a primer to these very concepts. Okay, I'm gonna go, I think, drink some hot tea or something. I'm out of here. Thanks for watching the presentation. Again, check out the comments. Let me know what you thought of all this, and give it a share if you think anybody else could benefit from this presentation. I will see you guys hopefully soon on the next video.